Hi, Orange Girl here with another scrapbooking process video for you. I am participating in a challenge over in the Paper Issues Facebook group called the Name Game. I'll explain more about that as we go, and I will also go ahead and link all of that information below in the description of the video. So I am working with the Unforgettable collection by Cocoa Vanilla Studio, and this is one of the cut apart sheets that comes in the collection, and I've decided to go with a grid design here. And I have two of the very same photos of my daughter. One is in black and white and one is in color. And at this point, I hadn't really decided which one of these I was going to use, or if I wanted to even use both of them. So what I'm kind of going back and forth between, I cut apart some of those 4x6, not 4x6, some 3x4 cards, and then I also have cut apart some of, I think some of the background layers might be parts of the 6x8 paper pad. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to speed up this video a little bit because all I'm doing is going through and pulling out ephemera that I think I might use. And then I decided that I wanted to do a little bit of mixed media behind the whole thing. So I went ahead and I grabbed my white gesso and I went ahead and rubbed that on the middle portion. And now I'm getting out my watercolor paints and I'm going to add that over the top. I did walk away and give it some time to dry. The gesso does two things. So one of the things that it has done here for me is whited out some of the background paper because it does have a small print on it, and I was okay with some of that just being covered up a little bit. I used my finger to kind of blend the white gesso out at the edges so it kind of looks like it just blends out. And now I am taking my, I'm doing something called, that some people call the plastic technique or the packaging technique. Just taking some old packaging, putting my paint on the packaging, and then smushing it onto the page. When you use gesso, it also helps because the paper doesn't soak right into, the paint doesn't soak right into the paper. And so you can kind of move it around a little bit, which is what I've been doing. So I'm just kind of going back and forth between my different color mists and watercolors and adding some kind of orange, three different colors of orange. That one is a little bit more pink, one is a little bit more salmon, and one is pretty much straight up orange. And then some green, different shades of green to my page. So I'm going back and forth between using my brush a little bit, using the packaging technique, and so on and so forth. This video is a little bit longer than some of my other videos because I did add the mixed media element into this. I went ahead, and I will here in a second go ahead and let this dry, and when I come back to it, it'll be completely dry when I start to add the photos over the top, or almost completely dry. The last thing that I just did there was I took my paper towels and I just kind of rubbed it over the whole thing. So as I'm working on this, I'm putting everything back on, and then I'm realizing that I might need a little bit more paint. So I'm just going to add a little bit more. I think I end up taking, I'm taking the stuff off so that I can add a little bit more paint around the edges. And then, to be honest, after I get all this done and it's dry, I realize that I kind of have the paint in the wrong places. This is a little bit of pink that I'm adding to that orange color. And when I say I have it in the wrong places, what I mean by that is you can kind of see how my swatches of color here are more vertical than they are horizontal, and my photos are horizontal. And so when I end up coming back to this and adding the photos on it, I do end up turning the whole paper sideways so that it is, once again, is more horizontal instead of vertical. So I haven't done that yet here, but I'm just kind of trying to see if I have enough. So I also know that I'm going to put some sort of border around the outside at some point, so that will be something that I'll add towards the end. But since I know I'm going to add that, I know I also have a little bit of play. I can take a little bit off, more off one side than the other, or whatever I want when I go to cut this background paper from the 12 by 12 size down to what I end up with when I add a 12 by 12 behind it. Okay, so I'm adding a little tissue paper behind my photos. At this point, I've decided I'm going to go ahead and use both photos. And like I said, this is for a challenge that's called the Name Game. And you're supposed to take your name and use the first letter of each letter in your name um, and brainstorm a list of things that you could use on your layout and use at least one thing from those. So I chose to use my name, Orange Girl. I'm just using the orange part. Even though this is just my social media name, I decided it was a little bit more fun. My real name only has 4 letters in it. So um, I'm using the color orange for O, and I'm using ripped paper for R. I use some arrows and adhesive for A. I use a number, and you'll see that here in a little bit. And I'm using a grid design, also gray and green on my page for G, and ephemera for E. So that's how I work with the challenge. So I'm going through a bunch of the ephemera that I put out and that I pulled out, and I am just trying to see which things I want to add. So I add the little tag up at the top right grid, and I'm adding that beside or kind of on top of that the hearts that you see, the green striped paper, those hearts are actually from a cut file I used for one of my last layouts that I made with this collection. Actually, had a bunch of hearts on it, and this was just the outside image, the reverse image of that, and I kept it thinking I might use it at some point. And then I just am stapling things together. I will be roughing up all the edges of all of the pages if I haven't done that yet. And now I'm trying to decide last minute here the placement of my photos and the placement of my title and my journaling. And that does end up changing actually, so you'll see in a minute. So my title is called 2020 Blues. And the reason I called it that is because my daughter actually wrote a song, and this photograph is her. It's actually a still image that's taken from a video. What I'm doing here now is I'm adding a little bit of hidden journaling that's going to go right behind that card there. You'll see me come up here with a glassine, there it is, a glassine bag that I'm cutting down, and now this little card that I made will just fit right behind there. And what is on that card are the lyrics to the song that she wrote. So it's too much to put on the whole layout, but I wanted the lyrics to be included. I will also just kind of give you fair warning that they are political in nature. We live in Iowa, and Iowa is the first to caucus. In fact, when you see this video, we will have just completed our caucuses on Monday. And so I think this video will be going live on a Wednesday. So we are first in the nation to caucus, and whether you believe we should be or should not be, doesn't really matter right now. It just is the way it is. So as a result, we also get bombarded with a lot more political ads for probably a lot longer. And so B really likes to watch YouTube videos, and the political ads are just insane, and they're on all of the time. And so she is only 10, and she knows every single candidate and where they stand on a lot of the issues because of those lovely ads that interrupt her YouTube watching. So she wrote a song about it called the 2020 Blues. And so the lyrics are in the hidden journaling that is behind that card. And then the journaling that's out in the open just says, the political ads are interrupting B's YouTube video watching. What to do? Write a song about it, of course. She knocked it out of the park with the 2020 Blues. So I said that I was going to use a number on my layout, and I used the number 2020, and that satisfied the N part of Orange Girl. And let's see. So now I am just kind of trying to decide what I'm going to put behind I knew I wanted to have some sort of a border around the outside of my layout. I'm also trying to decide, I know I needed to add a little bit more black to this in some way. And so I was trying to decide how I wanted to do that. So I was looking at stickers and things, and I don't come up with anything till the very end. In fact, I may have even done it off camera. Off camera, I add a few of the black stickers that are included in this collection. So a few hearts and maybe a few black splatters too. I can't remember. So, all right. So now I am gluing it down to for real. I have all my layers. I've glued some of my layers to each other so they're easier to move back and forth off and on the actual layout as I'm making decisions. And then now I've decided to add a little bit of stitching here and there, and my trusty Singer sewing machine is right there on my desk, so it's really easy for me to just zip a little bit through there and call it done. Then I did end up turning, oh, I also went ahead and I did a border all the way around the edges of this, and I had not ripped my paper yet. So I left, when I did the border around the outside with the sewing machine, I did it kind of a little bit far in on a couple of the sides so that I would still be able to rip some of the paper around the edges, because that satisfied the R in Orange Girl. And now I'm just adding some tangled thread behind several different parts. I think I have a little bit on each card area. So there's some right here behind the butterfly that I always put on my layouts of my daughter. Some behind the butterfly up on the top part, top right, and then over on the left, I'm adding a little different color, green. I added orange, and now I'm adding green. It's kind of a greenish blue, kind of aqua color to match everything going on. I did pop up both of my photos. And like I said, I'm just going to add a couple little doodads here to add a little bit more layers. So one of the things I like about this layout is I like all the layers that I created in each of the grids. That's one of my favorite things to do with a grid design. It just makes it still pretty interesting, even though it is in just a grid. I'm using my handy dandy T-square ruler to make sure that everything is at least relatively straight. It doesn't have to be perfect for me, but I like it to look pretty close. And now I'm just adding a few more little ephemera pieces to add a little bit of something to the photos a little bit, and then a few little splatters of green and a few splatters of orange. And then, like I said, off camera, I add a few more bits of black to the layout. For some reason, I thought my camera was on, but it wasn't. And so you'll see it though in the close-ups. So I would encourage you to hit the Paper Issues store. Use the code OrangeGirl to save 20% on anything in the store. The free files are always free. They're slowly getting in new things each week, coming from the most recent releases that are coming out right now. Here come the photos. The close-ups. Look for the black that I've added as well, because this is the only time that you'll see it. So there's one of the hearts. And there's some more. So you kind of get an idea of how that works. I also would suggest that that's the hidden journaling. Stop over to the Paper Issues Facebook page. There's a bunch of challenges up there every week or every month, and there's gift cards available to win as a result of that. So play along, show us what you got, and I'd love to see you back here again on my channel soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.